very good morning to you all, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you're all doing very well and completely ignore the fact that I'm stood in the same place in the same clothes, same weather conditions as probably one of the last videos you saw. I'm going to be away for a couple of days and I need to get some videos done, so hence no top change. What I wanted to do today in today's video is it's a topic we touched on the podcast, episode 5 of Incensed, the Pokemon Go podcast. Casual Coops very kindly and very smartly, I feel, brought up the query of the state of the game at the moment, and I know it's been touched on by some other content creators as well, and it's been hit on by many people I've chatted to and seen in my Discord as well. So I feel like I need to address a couple of things, because the state of the game in 2021 is far more concerning than you might first imagine. So let's jump into my feelings about that right now. Also, I'm going to brave the rain, so if the hood suddenly pops up and the camera decides to break, I apologise. It's typical British weather here. I have just talked about the weather week, and the weather's now turned early. We need to talk about a couple of things. The first point is, over the course of, this year, 2021, Niantic have got into the habit of announcing like an entire month's worth of events and content, which I think is very good. Always appreciate Niantic saying, hey, this is what is coming up in the next 4 weeks. It means you can plan ahead, you can be conscientious of your time, you can kind of plan around it if you so please. Certainly very good for me as a content creator. Also very good that they note down when the com day is pretty ahead of time as well, so that's always good. But my biggest problem, and it's really become highlighted in March, and if we look at what happened in March, particularly with A, the raid bosses, and B, the events, Niantic have got this it's a very sort of damaging model that's going off of people's FOMO, playing off the fear of missing out, and also quantity not quality vibe, and mixing the two of those together is actually going to be detrimental, I feel, to the game in the long run. Niantic are probably loving the profits and stuff that they're getting in a very short space of time, but it's not going to work consistently, and Niantic, if anybody from Niantic happens to watch this video, you need to have a balance. There's a balance in everything. Oh, it's actually got rain on the screen, look at that, brilliant. Fantastic. Oh, brilliant. This has gone spiffingly. I don't even have an umbrella with me. Living life on the edge, ladies and gentlemen. Niantic, if you happen to be watching, I know that people in the comments could say like, hey, you don't have to play every event, you can play when you want, you can choose whatever, and yes, I know that, but is the hood gonna go up? I think the hood might have to go up, ladies and gentlemen. Playing on people's FOMO, let's address that point, and the perfect example has been these new shiny legendary raid bosses, okay? The Incarnate Form Forces of Nature trio. They were last here at the very beginning of the pandemic. I think Tornadus was here first back in mid-February 2020, then it switched to Thunderous, and they were here, I think, for about 2 or 3 weeks each. A decent chunk of time, no shiny, and then I believe they had a little break, and then Landorus came in early April, I think, where it was kind of, the world was in lockdown and stuff, and the remote raid pass didn't exist, so basically nobody raided it. What Niantic seems to be getting into the habit of is quite worrying, is that they're releasing a new shiny for 6 days. Every event is 6 days, it's not even a week now, and we touched on this, we saw this about a year ago actually in March, when they decided to have 4 raid weekends for 4 days, a new shiny. It was like Shiny Darkrai was released for 4 days, and everyone was like, oh crap, we need to go out hard for it because we don't know when it's going to come back, etc. The same philosophy is true now. It's a case of, you need to go ham and get the shiny, or you're going to miss it out because you have no idea when these incarnate forms will be back. True, I know some people are very, very good, and I know Casual Coops has this philosophy, is like, they will be back. You have to look at it that way. They will come back. When? We do not know. It could be 13 months, it could be, in the case of Palkia and Dialga, it's now over 2 years since they were in raids. Like, for a decent chunk of time. I'm not going to include GoFest 2020, that's not fair, because people were shiny hunting. So, you have no idea when Niantic are suddenly going to go, let's rerun that legendary with its shiny form. And that factor of FOMO has played very heavily, I feel, in the community recently, because people were raiding these they're terrible legendaries. They were absolutely shocking, but they had their shiny available, they were brand new, so people had to go hard for them. And I've fallen into that trap full-heartedly. I mean, I'm a raider, I look at it as like I'm getting a bit of XP, rare candy on the side, but at the heart of it, I want these new shinies in my decks, and I mean, shiny Tornadoes took me 49 bloody raids. It's not the worst odds that I've seen anywhere, and not the worst odds I've experienced personally. It is the worst shiny odds in terms of a short space of time that I've ever experienced. Shiny Virizion took me 71 raids to get, and that was here for about 2 weeks, I think. So 2 weeks, that's actually a doable chunk of time. Admittedly, you have to put some remotes in and raids, you know, on site, etc. But this, 6 days. 6 days, and I know there are some people who've had to do over 90 to get their shiny. You think, that is Niantic really sucking the money and the fun out of the raiding aspect, I feel. It's very much a cash cow, I think is what Masterful27 said in the podcast. It's a very dangerous strategy because the players, we're not stupid, Niantic. We're not a bunch of sheep. We know full well that this is the case, and it's going to come to a head very shortly, or maybe in a year's time, when maybe the newer legendaries aren't like really available. There isn't anything new to add to the game, and then they drop a shiny, and it's here for 4 days. Well, I don't have. For example, if somebody, I don't know, is self-isolating. I mean, the pandemic's still going on as of now. Hence, I've got my mask down here, but I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm away from people, which is all good. You could still have the scenario where people are self-isolating. They're away. They're in hospital, or whatever, and they miss those 6 days. And maybe it's a shiny they really want, or something like they're a shiny hunter, they're a shiny chaser. That 6 days is not a very big chunk of time. So I think that's a bad strategy. And also, this does play, again, into the recent events in March. If we look at, for example, the Shiny Nose Pass event, that again was like 6 or 7 days, so only a week. And yes, Nose Pass was spawning in the wild infrequently, not too bad. It was in raids if you really wanted to burn raid passes, and it was in a load of quests. You could quest hunt it pretty successfully. Unlike Spiritomb, releasing a brand new shiny for that length of time I don't think is right. I don't understand why Niantic think that a short, sharp dose of event is a decent idea, because you don't allow much time for somebody to invest their gameplay into it. So it's a case of if you can't access that week, you're screwed. It's quite a restrictive policy that Niantic have gone for. It's restrictive in one way, but then suddenly they're going, here, there's an event every single week, and there's something happening almost every weekend. I think actually the second to last week of March was the first time that we've not had an event in like 4 weeks or something. It was kind of amazing to see normal spawns for once. I really don't understand it. I would love to. This is sort of an open debate. It's like, do you agree with what I'm saying, or do you think I'm talking out of my arse? I personally feel that Niantic's quantity over quality outlook on this game is a very, very short lifespan strategy, which is completely counterintuitive to what they're clearly wanting to do. As we've touched on it in the podcast, like I say, is that they know that this game will have an end date at some point. The game will die eventually, but they're trying to maximise on it, and that's sensible. You should try and maximise the amount of gameplay hours that you can get out of a development, but it's not really the best strategy, Niantic. If you could think of some more creative, fun events, like, you don't necessarily need to drop a new shiny with an event. I would say that, but the choice of when you drop a shiny and when you don't is very, very bizarre. Like, for example, so we've dropped Shiny Nose Pass in the, whatever it was, the Searching for Legends event. Okay, fine, it's an event focusing on sort of rock, ground and steel Pokemon, whatever. It's the Compass Pokemon, searching for legends, all of that jazz. But we're going to throw it back to the Hoenn week that was in February, I believe. Late January, early February, potentially. That had no new shiny. It was featuring Aron as the shiny. And I'm like, but you had a Spotlight Hour during that week that was Shroomish. Why didn't you put that shiny out with the Spotlight Hour, and then people would have gone ham for it and chased it and all of that stuff? I don't understand. Like, Niantic, genuinely, their structuring and their decisions that they make are very perplexing sometimes. I don't know, I feel like I've sort of gone off on a bit of a tangent here. We've talked about the FOMO aspect. We kind of touched on the quantity, not quality vibe. Like, take, for example, this electric event that's currently ongoing at the moment as I'm recording this, the Charge Up Week. Now, it drops Tynamo, a brand new electric type Pokemon, that is completely useless. And I know they've got to put it out at some point, just get it out and done. But the new Pokemon that they're dropping are always kind of rubbish. They're always one every sort of month, and it's sort of like, okay, now that's in the wild. Nobody's excited to go and chase Tynamo, particularly actually as it's seen in the Weather Week. It's also going to be appearing. So the very next event is also featured, so you don't need to chase for it during the Charge-Up week. Apart from that, oh dear, somebody's umbrella's gone. Typical British weather. It's rainy and windy, so your umbrella just becomes a giant kite. The other thing with the Charge-Up event is that they brought out Mega Manectric, which, yes, okay, cool. It's got really good DPS as an electric type attacker, and it's the best non-shadow electric type in the game. But we've already seen people's disdain and hate for the Mega Raid system, so that's actually died. I think possibly the quickest death of any raid boss or any new thing I've ever seen in the game. Genuinely, I did 3 raids and I'm done. I haven't done another one. I've just got the Mega Energy. I don't even have one to evolve, to be honest, because like you're going to need it versus Tornadus, but that's it. It's a very, obviously it's a typing, it's a very niche Mega. I don't understand why they decided to drop both. The only 2 electric type Megas have both been dropped in the most recent Mega Pokemon drops. Why not bring us out a Steel Mega, or a Fighting type Mega, or I don't know, something else, a Rock type Mega, something to shift the meta a little bit. So Mega Manectric, it died very, very fast, and people have got very bored of it very quickly, and then you're just left with, right, so there's Tynamo to hunt, and what else? Like, I'm literally just gotchering this whole event. I'm hunting Magnemite a little bit for the XL candy, but that is literally the slowest grind you can ever imagine. It's just so casual. I'm going to address a point that probably some people are going to say, is that, well, you just said you don't want so many events all the time, so it's quite good to have an event that's super casual. Yes and no. Having an event that's super casual means that people's interest is not invested in that event, and every time that they announce an event that's really sort of short and sharp and immediately after another one, people's interest is going to just go, oh, here's another one, here's another event, here's another event. It goes back to that quantity, not quality. You're not giving people the breathing time to go, oh, this is what Pokemon Go is like normally, and then they could announce, like, give us 10 days with no event. Say, these are normal spawns here. There's Rattata, there's, Pidove, there's whatever. Let us enjoy the new seasonal spawns. We've barely had a chance to even see what the seasonal spawns are this spring here in the UK. When they dropped the seasonal spawns in sort of December and January, I mean, we went out and about, and it's like, okay, you see loads and loads of Snova, you see all of this, bits and pieces for the winter spawns, that's cool. You very rarely, like this month, I've never had a moment to sort of even notice what the springtime spawns are. If Niantic gave a breather, week to 2 weeks without an event, and then they say, here's an event, people will go, oh cool, it's something different. Whereas if it's always something different, it's no longer different, if that makes sense. There's no unique individuality to any event. It's just one event and it just bleeds into another. I guess Tynamo quite nicely plays into that, because Tynamo, new release with the electric type event, and then it bleeds immediately into the Weather Week, which rounds out the month. So Tynamo is actually featured in 2 events that are back-to-back, which coincide for 2 weeks with no break pretty much, and the interest for that Pokemon already died anyway. I'm not hunting it by any stretch of the imagination, so what's the point, Niantic? You've just thrown Tynamo away really, really quickly. This whole factor really gets me worried, because you think, like, we've seen how Niantic are sort of very good at recycling bits and pieces. We've seen how they like to recycle, particularly Altered Giratina and Darkrai have been recycled more times than I can bloody mention. Heatran has been recycled more times than I can mention. I guarantee you will see each one of those returning this year. And again, if it's a bad legendary, people's interest is going to wane massively. And then Niantic are going to go, oh my god, we're not getting enough people raiding, so let's drop a new whatever, a new Mega or something. And then people go, oh, okay, cool, I'll do that for 5 seconds. In Niantic's efforts to get people to play the game harder for longer, they're actually doing detrimental damage to people's gameplay styles and forcing people to be way more casual than they otherwise would be. That's just my sort of feeling, my 2 cents on it. It was more of a weird sort of rant, to be honest, than an actual fact-finding video, wasn't it? I apologise, everybody. I hope that was sort of insightful in some way? Of course, I said this is an open debate. Let me know in the comments or on Twitter. Do you agree or do you think I'm talking rubbish? Because genuinely, you can play this game any which way you so please. I, for example, am a bit of a raider. I'm obviously a raider. And I like to grind. I like to grind for something and put my hard-earned time into it. But I know that other people aren't. Some people are super casual, some people just want to shiny chase, some people want to collect certain things, some people want to live in decks. It's a very open game, but Niantic have a bizarre strategy, which I think is actually doing damage to anybody who's playing the game at the moment. And it's interesting, I've seen so many people tweeting, like, don't play into Niantic's FOMO, the fear of missing out shouldn't really be there. It was never this bad, even in 2020, because if you think, I mean, a new shiny, the worst case we had was Darkrai, released in, when was it? It was March 2020, Darkrai shiny was released for the first time for 4 days, bam. But with Darkrai, you can kind of guarantee, because it's the sort of dark type legendary or mythical as it's actually known, that's going to feature again in a Halloween event. It always has done and it always will do, I feel. With things like the Forces of Nature trio that we've got at the moment, they could drop at any which time they like. I mean, Niantic, for example, could turn around and say, like, April, oh, we're going to have them again. In which case, everybody who raided hard for them this time is going to be like, well, okay, bugger off, Niantic. Why on earth would I raid for them again? I've got my shiny. And then people who didn't raid for them this time will, you know, just be raiding for it again. And I don't know, it's a weird sort of catch-22, I feel. I feel I need to wrap this up before I go off on more of a tangent. Anyway, look. Of course, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. Do you think the Niantic are playing hardcore on the FOMO factor of their game nowadays, or is their strategy making sense to you? I don't know. Yeah, for me personally, it's a bit of a weird one. I really like the game, obviously, and I enjoy making content around it, but I do dislike the short, sharp, poorly executed vibe that Niantic are going for. And I feel that it's concerning when players and your friends can make better business and in-game strategies for Niantic than they do themselves. There may be strings being pulled in the background by the Pokemon Company. I have no idea. Obviously, I don't work for Niantic. We on the podcast, on Incensed, a Pokemon Go podcast, we've talked many a times about things that they could do, things that they should have done, which actually would make far more sense for the game, earned them a lot more money, got more people excited and interested, and generally made the game better. But Niantic do something completely stupid and ridiculous, and then kind of everybody complains on Twitter. Anyway, I'm going to say thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please do make sure to subscribe if you are new with the notifications on, and of course smash that like button if you enjoyed this video. I don't know what this video really was. It was more of a rant, FOMO rant, wasn't it? Anyway, I'll see you all hopefully in another video or a live stream. Take care.